All right, Shalom. First of all, I want to give all praises to Yahawah, Bahashim, YAHAWASHI, Bahashim RAWCHAA QADASH. And that's saying Yahawah, which is the name of the Heavenly Father, who the world ignorantly calls God, Jehovah, and Yahweh. YAHAWASHI is the name of his beloved Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ and Yeshua. And RAWCHAA QADASH is the name of the Holy Spirit, all in the ancient Hebrew tongue, the LaShawan Qadash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who taught us this truth and rule well. Peace and salutations to the Akim out here pushing this word in sincerity, truth, and in faith. Shalom to the Israelite foreigners, those of our people that very well may look exactly like the other nations, but their heritage through their father's seed line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Hebrew Israelites, okay? And shalom to the few sisters, the Aquath that's out here listening in all humility. Okay, we know what time it is. Revelation 12:12, the devil is come down unto you having great wrath because he know that his time is short. Okay, that's why everything is happening the way it's happening right now. Okay, he knows it. He sees it. It's happening right in front of his face. His kingdom is circling the drain. And as I always say, through the Spirit, the closest you get to the end, the faster it starts to move. All right. That's why things are speeding up right now. All right. Isaiah 55:11, so shall my word be that go forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. These are the words of Yahawah, YAHAWASHI, man. Okay. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. Matthew 24:35. Okay. These words are faithful and true, man. All right. So it's time to wake up. If you're a so-called Negro, Latino, or Native American, man, if you're an Israelite, if you don't want to get caught up in this destruction that's about to happen, man, it's time to wake up and repent. All right. I have another lesson, and I'm going to entitle it The History of Race in America. Okay. Because I found this clip that I want to play. You know, it's an Edomite stating the same thing, you know, that the elder Malcolm from the Great Millstone Camp in Chicago brought out. Okay. He brought out, you know, the whole race thing about how it was a social construct. Okay. And maybe you'll believe it, or our people will believe it. All right. If they hear it coming from an Edomite. All right. So I'm going to just let that play, and then I'm going to get the scriptures. All right.
America is the history of rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. It starts in the colonies. So remember, during the colonial period, mid-1600s, there was no such thing as white people. Europeans didn't call themselves white. We didn't call ourselves white. We weren't all members of one big happy family. Are you kidding? Have you studied the history of Europe? English hated the Irish, right? Northern Italians didn't even think that Southern Italians were Italians.
Because they wasn't.
The Germans hated everybody, and everybody hated their ass right back. There was no team called white, no race called white, but all of a sudden, in the middle of the 1600s, there was. Why? Colonial elite looked around and they realized something, that they were heavily outnumbered by African enslaved folks, by European indentured servants, who were just one level above a slave, or other Europeans who weren't technically indentured servants, but they were still peasants, didn't have any money, didn't have any land, and they could do the math. They added it up, and they were like, damn, we got to figure out a way to split these folks apart from one another, or they're going to rise up and take our stuff. History of America.
That's the history of America. Okay. And I got some other writings, okay, that's going to go into it even deeper. All right. Get the scripture right quick. Got these three scriptures. Deuteronomy 28:37, and thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations whither the Lord, Yahawah Shem Yahawashi, shall lead thee. 1 King 9 and 7. Then when I cut off Israel out of the land which I have given them, and this house which I have hallowed for my name, I will cast out my sight. And Israel shall be a proverb and a byword among all people. Okay? To be called black is a byword and a proverb. Second Chronicles 7 and 20. Then will I pluck them up by the root out of my land which I have given them. Okay? And this house which I have sacrificed for my name will I cast out of my sight, and will make it to be a proverb and a byword among all nations. Okay. I don't know if y'all seen is a clip of an Asian woman on a bus calling the Israelite, I'm gonna just say the N word, okay? Because you know how YouTube gets down. On the bus, okay, in front of everybody. This Edomite tried to calm her down, and she was like, I'm not talking to you, okay? So among all nations, they show you that in movies, when Jake was fighting the war, you know, Vietnam, Korea, that they were teaching those heathens to call Jake the N-word. Okay? But that's all Bible prophecy, man. All right? This is National Museum of African American History and Culture, talking about race, historical foundations of race. The term race, used infrequently before the 1500s, was used to identify groups of people with a kinship or group connection. The modern day use of the term race is a human invention. Okay? It's a human invention. It says the world got along without race for the overwhelming majority of its history. The U.S. has never been without it. Okay? Let that sink in. Okay? It's just now. The last when did it come in? 17, 18, 19, like the last 400 years. Okay? Talking about race. All right? And the small hats are in an uproar right now about it, because this thing that what's happening is lifting up the skirt on them. Okay? Making it known that they are not who they say they are. All right? What is a social construction? Race is a human invented shorthand term used to describe and categorize people into various social groups based on characteristics like skin color, physical features, and genetic heredity. Race, while not a valid biological concept, is a real social construction that gives or denies benefits and privileges. American society developed the notion of race early in its formation to justify its new economic system of capitalism, which depended on the institution of forced labor, especially the enslavement of African peoples. And that African people right there is Israel, should be Israelite peoples. To more accurately understand how race and its counterpart, racism, are woven into the very fabric of American society, we must explore the history of how race, white privilege, and anti-blackness came to be. Okay? It's anti-blackness. It ain't no anti-SEM ETIC. Okay? That's what's really going on. But when you mention them, they just throw that out. So you don't have anything to stand on. Okay, they throw that out like a banana peel. All right, you're gonna slip. Everybody, it's a sleight of hand, magic, enchantment. Okay, when they throw that out there. The invention of race, the concept of race, as we understand it today, evolved alongside the formation of the United States and was deeply connected with the evolution of two other terms, white and slave. The word race, white, and slave were all used by Europeans in the 1500s, and they brought these words with them to North America. However, the words did not have the meanings that they have today. Instead, the need of developing American society would transform those words' meanings into new ideas. Okay? So it's a social construct, man. All right? It's a plan. When they throw that anti-word out there, that's all a plan. That's part of it. Okay? To keep this system intact. That's their glue. Okay? It says the term race used infrequently before the 1500s was used to identify groups of people with kinship or groups of the modern day use of the term race. I think I just read. During the 17th century, European Enlightenment philosophers based their ideas on the importance of secular reasoning, rationality, and scientific study, as opposed to faith-based religious understandings of the world. Philosophers and naturalists were categorizing the world anew and extending such thinking to the people of the world. These new beliefs, which evolved starting in the late 17th century and flourished through the late 18th century, argued that there were natural laws that governed the world and human beings. Over centuries, the false notion that white people were inherently smarter, more capable, and more human than non-white people became acceptable worldwide. Okay, this is the Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hands of the wicked. Okay, this is the categorization of people. This categorization of people became a justification for European colonization and subsequent enslavement of people from Africa. Okay, the people who came through Africa. Okay, because if you know, it was the the Africans, so-called Africans, and the so-called Arabs who sold the Israelites into slavery to the Edomites. Okay, slavery as a concept has existed for centuries. Enslaved people, slaves, were forced to labor for another. We can point to the use of the term slave in the Hebrew Bible. Ancient societies such as Greece, Rome, and Egypt, as well as during other eras of time, with the Mediterranean and European regions before the 16th century, enslavement was acceptable for persons considered heathen or outside of the Christian-based faiths. In this world, being a slave was not for life or hereditary, meaning the status of a slave did not automatically transfer from parent to child. In many cultures, slaves were still able to earn small wages, gather with others, marry, and potentially buy their freedom. Similarly, people of darker skin, such as people from the African continent, were not automatically enslaved or considered slaves. Okay? White identity. Because so that last passage they were saying that, you know, it wasn't a skin color thing. Okay? White identity. The word white held a different meaning too and transformed over time before the mid-1600s. There is no evidence that the English referred to themselves as being white people. This concept did not occur until 1613, when the English society first encountered and contrasted themselves against the East Indians. Through their colonial pursuit, even then, there was not a large body of people who considered themselves white as we know the term today. From about the 1550s to 1600s, white was exclusively used to describe elite English women because the whiteness of the skin signaled that they were persons of high social class who did not go outside to labor. However, the term white did not refer to elite English men because the idea that men did not leave their homes to work could signal that they were lazy, sick, or unproductive. Initially, the racial identity of white referred only to Anglo-Saxon people and has changed due to time and geography. As the concept of being white evolved, the number of people considered white would grow as people wanted to push back against the increasing numbers of people of color due to emancipation and immigration. Okay, immigration. Ain't no immigration. Activist Paul Keevil says whiteness is a constantly shifting boundary separating those who are entitled to have certain privileges from those whose exploitation and vulnerability to violence is justified by their not being white. Okay? European colonists used the word white to refer to people who look like themselves, grew to become entangled with the word race and slave in the American colonies in the mid-1660s. These elite created races of savage, Indians, subhuman Africans, and white men. Okay? See? The social invention succeeded in uniting the white colonists, dispossessing the marginalized native people, and permanently enslaving most African-descended people for generations. Tragically, American culture from the very beginning developed around the idea of race and racism. Okay? That's what this country is founded on. Okay? Nothing else. You know? I don't know if y'all seen there's a video. I tried to zoom in on it, but I really couldn't see it. I don't know, my phone the clarity wasn't good enough, but they say on the back of the $20 bill up there in the middle, in the very center, that rope that's hanging down has a Jake hanging from the rope on the $20 bill. Okay? All right? They're proud of that. They're proud to be, slave drivers. Okay? The racial identity of white has evolved throughout history. Initially, it referred only to Anglo-Saxon peoples, historically, who belonged to the category of white would historically who belonged to the category of white would expand as people wanted to push back against the increasing number of people of color due to emancipation and immigration. It says the same thing again. The historical evolution of race and racism in colonial and early America, fueled by Enlightenment ideas of natural rights of man, spurred by the passion for religious freedom and search of property and escaping persecution, European colonists came to North America in search of a place to create a new society. The ideals of enlightenment spread to North American colonies and formed the basis of their democracy, as well as most brutal kind of servitude, chattel slavery. Okay? In the world before 1500, the notion of heresy, hierarchy, was a common principle. Every person belonged to a hierarchical structure in some way. Children to parents, parishioners to churches, laborers to the landowners, etc. As the idea of the natural rights of a man became more prevalent through the 18th century, the concept of equality becomes a standard stream of thought. By categorizing humans by race, a new heresy was invented based on what many considered science. Race is the child of racism, not the father. Okay. Slavery in colonies. With the first decades of the 1600s, the first Africans, Israelites, were captured and brought to the Americas colonies as enslaved laborers. Most colonies had made enslavement legal. At this time, in colonial America, enslaved Africans, Israelites, were just one source of labor. The English settlers used European indentured servants and enslaved indigenous people as other forms of coerced labor. Those enslaved indigenous people were the Gadites and the Reubenites, okay, the so-called American Indians. Okay. It says these groups of enslaved and forced labor often worked side by side and commingled socially. The notion of enslavement changed throughout the 1600s. In this early period, enslavement was not an automatic condition, nor did it uniformly apply to all African and African descent people. Very importantly, being enslaved was not necessarily a permanent life status. The boundaries between groups were more fluid, but began to shift over the next few decades to make strict distinctions, which eventually became law. Okay? It's breaking it down. All right? Indentured servitude. By the late 1600s, significant shift began to happen in the colonies as the survival of European immigrants increased. They were more demand. Because they was coming over here dying. Okay, they couldn't handle the winters. They didn't know how to forage or to live on the land. All right. It says, As the survival of European immigrants increased, there were more demands for the land and labor needed to procure wealth. Indentured servitude lost its attractiveness as it became economically less profitable to utilize servants of European descent. White settlers began to turn to slavery as the primary source of forced labor in many of the colonies. African people, Israelites, were seen as more desirable slaves because they brought advanced farming skills, carpentry, and bricklaying skills, as well as metal and leatherworking skills. Characterizations of Africans in the early period of colonial America were mostly positive, and the colonists saw their future as dependent on this source of labor. Okay, all right, showing that we had the knowledge, they didn't have the knowledge. Okay, Jacob is the form of all things, man. Okay, they were dependent. They were dependent on us, like they're still dependent on us. They couldn't live in this world without us. Okay, they showed you in that film, Day Without a Mexican. Okay, what is chattel slavery? The trajectory of Virginia's development of chattel slavery highlights how the system of chattel slavery and, along with it, anti-blackness, opposed to or hostile toward black people. Where's the outcry about anti-blackness? Where's that outcry? All right, when our people are being shot down in the streets, murdered, doing all types of atrocities here in America in my lifetime. Okay, where's the demand for an apology, for restitution, monetary wise? Okay, taking away your goods because you're such a bad person. Okay, taking away your money. Where is that at? It's still going on. Anti-blackness is still going on. Where's the outcry? Okay, because it's the ones who's doing it are the ones who's perpetrating as if they're being attacked. Okay, it says was codified in colonial America. It says the trajectory of, probably had to read that again. The trajectory of Virginia's development of chattel slavery highlights how the system of chattel slavery and, along with it, anti-blackness, opposed to or hostile toward black people, was codified in colonial America. Labor status was not permitted nor solely connected to race. A significant turning point came in 1662 when Virginia enacted a law of hereditary slavery. You hear that? Which meant the status of the mother determined the status of the child. This law deviated from English common law, which assigned the legal status of children based on their father's legal status. Okay, you turn the things upside down. Okay, now all of a sudden the woman is the patriarch. Okay, she determines the race. She determines everything. Man, get out of here. It says, thus, children of enslaved women would automatically share the legal status of slave. This doctrine, partus squirtere ventrum, see below, laid the foundation for the natural increase of the enslaved in the Americas and legitimized the exploitation of female slaves by white planters or other men. In 1667, the last of the religious conditions that placed limits on servitude was erased by another Virginia law. Okay, They tied it all up. Okay, they sealed it. Okay, you gonna be a slave. There's no way out. There's no law in the book. You know, they taking all the laws out. This new law deemed it legal to keep enslaved people in bondage even if they converted to Christianity. With this decree, the justification for black servitude changed from a religious status to a designation based on race. See more information about the timeline of slavery in the making of America. Okay? So these devils got a lot to pay for, man. Even though YAHAWASHI had it set up, you know, for them to put us in slavery, they still got to pay. They still going to pay for it. All right? Partus sequitur ventrum. Before 1660, in English common law, the legal status of children followed the status of the father. In the colonies, this doctrine followed the colonists. Elizabeth Key, an enslaved biracial woman, sued for her freedom in Virginia on the basis that her father was white. The court granted freedom to hear her flight. The court granted freedom to her and her child in 1656. Right, because they know if her father white, she white. They understand the concept. They know what's going on. In response to this case, Virginia instituted partus sequitur ventrum, making children's legal status follow the mother. Okay. Bacon's Rebellion in 1676 was a short-lived but had a long-reaching effect of deepening the racial divide in the colonial Chesapeake region. Coalitions of poor white people, free and enslaved Africans rebelled against the rising planter class because they wanted to acquire land reserved for Virginia's indigenous people. Elite colonists determined that they needed to amass more native lands for their continued expansion. To pacify poor European colonists who sought economic advancement, and to keep a dedicated labor force to do the grueling agricultural work. By the mid-1700s, new laws and societal societal norms link Africans to perpetual labor, and the American colonies made formal social distinctions among its people based on appearance, place of origin, and heredity. Okay? Where's the outcry and the apology for this? Where's the apology? Okay, where's the going and meeting with the NAACP, which they started? Okay, where's the training? Okay, to pull them out of such a hateful state of being. Okay. The African physical distinctiveness marked their newly created subordinate position. To further separate the social and legal connections between lower class whites and African laborer, enslaved or free, laws were put in place to control the interactions between the two groups. These laws created a hierarchy based on race. Okay, there it is. At first they were getting together and coming against the elites, but the elites was like, no, we gotta separate them. We gotta get these poor whites. We gotta give them some privilege. Okay, to make them want to stay away from them. Okay. Paradox of liberty in America's consciousness. Colonists believed in natural law Colonists belief in natural laws produced revolutionary political thought in the last part of the 18th century. New generations of Americans, many born in the colonies, seized upon ideas like that of John Locke's social contract, which argues that all people naturally had a right to life, liberty, and property, and that any created government is legitimate only with the consent of those people being governed. Thomas Jefferson built upon these ideas in the Declaration of Independence by proclaiming that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness were inalienable God-given rights to all men. After the Revolution, the U.S. Constitution strongly encoded the protection of property within its words. It is within these twin founding documents that the paradox of liberty, the human right to freedom, and socially protected rights to property became the foundation and essence of the American's consciousness. The questions of who could and can claim unalienable rights has been a question for America through time. All right? They knew what they were doing. They set it up. They set it up to where, we would be perpetual slaves. That's it, And anything that threatened that, they'll write a law against it. Okay? How come a grown man, can't post something on his social site, okay, which one of their peoples are promoting it, okay, selling it, making money off of it, but nothing happens to them. No, not even a word to them, but want to make a public spectacle, okay, because it's still going on. This we're still in captivity. Okay, just because we don't have the chains and they don't have the whips, okay, that's a form of a chain and whips. Tell them, oh no, you can't play. You're suspended until you meet all our demands. Okay, and act like a coon. The scars and stains of racism are still deeply embedded in the American society. Exactly. John Lewis, congressman and civil rights pioneer. Okay. America would come to be defined by the language of freedom and the acceptance of slavery. How? The land of the free, home of the brave. Who was free? Okay, in order to be free, there has to be slavery. So who was free? The so-called Europeans, they were free. The so-called Africans, who were the Israelites, those were the slaves. Along with the revolutionary ideas of liberty and equality, slavery concerns began to surface as black colonists embraced the meaning of freedom and the British abolished slavery within their lands. The fledgling United States sought to establish itself and had to wrestle with the tension born from the paradox of liberty. It became necessary to develop new rationales and arguments to defend the institution of slavery. You see that? How does one justify holding How does one justify holding a human as property? Major political leaders and thinkers of American history promoted theories of difference and degeneracy about non-white people that grew in the late 18th century, okay? That's them demonizing, okay? It says physical differences were merged with status differences and coalesced to form a social heresy that placed white at the top and black at the bottom. By the beginning of the 19th century, white was an identity that designated a privileged landholding, usually male, status. Having whiteness meant having clear rights in the society, while not being white signifies your freedom, rights, property were unstable, if not non-existent. Okay? Psh. Having whiteness meant having clear rights in the society, while not being white signified your freedoms, rights, and property were unstable, if not non-existent. Okay? But what goes around comes around, all right? You're going to have the same status in our kingdom. No status, no rights. Okay? Ironically, Jefferson and Locke also both made arguments for the idea of inferior races, thereby supporting the development of the United States culture of racism. Okay? Their support of inferior races justified the dispossession of American Indians and the enslavement of Africans in the era of Revolution. It was this racial ideology that formed the foundation for the continuation of American chattel slavery and the further entrenchment of anti-blackness. Okay? Why isn't that being pushed? What's going on with anti-blackness? We see the anti-S word, but anti-blackness is not like this thing that just happened. Okay, with Ye and Kai. This which only happened, infrequent amount of times. Well, that's 2 times. 10 times you probably can count on one hand or 2 hands the time that they could even say anything like that happen. But the things that happens to us happens on a daily. Not a day has gone by in the history of this country where we haven't been persecuted for being who we are. Okay? And now that it's coming out who we really are, now they really want to persecute us. Get your ass back in that hole. Okay? Get back under that covering of black. Don't you come out and call yourself no Israelite. All right? It says excerpts from Thomas Jefferson's Notes of the State of Virginia. I advance it, therefore, as a suspicion only, that the blacks, whether originally a distinct race or made distinct by time and circumstance, are inferior to whites in the endowment both of body and mind. Come on. Body and mind, come on, man. We are physically better than them and mentally better than them. Greater, super surpasses them. They are a base man. Okay? Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay, man. Okay? You can only make yourself great on paper and in movies. All right? But in the real world, when it's mano a mano, one on one, okay, you ain't got your tricks, you ain't got your Gatling gun, you ain't got your 9, your M16, your AK. Okay, you don't have that, just mano a mano. Okay, who's gonna come out on top? Comparing them by their faculties of memory, reason, and imagination, it appears to me that in memory they are equal to the whites, in reasoning much inferior, and that imagination they are dull, tasteless, and anomalous. What? But but never yet could I find that a black had uttered a thought above the level of plain narration. Never see even an elementary trait or painting or sculpture. So they trying to say that we're just some dumb animals. Okay? When they just said earlier that they were dependent on us, you know, because we knew how to plant, we knew how to build, carpentry, bricklaying. We knew all that stuff, but they didn't. Okay? So this is the devil being a hypocrite, which is his nature. It says, it's a lot. The successful American Revolution and the new Constitution resulted in fierce debates about the future of slavery and the meaning of freedom. However, the nation did not end slavery, nor the uses of ideology to separate groups, choosing to maintain the existing heresy. The U.S. outlawed the transatlantic slave trade in 1808, but the institution of slavery and its connection to African descents remained. Israelite descents. Boosted by the Louisiana Purchase, cotton agriculture made profitable by the invention of the cotton gin and seized American Indian lands, and a new internal slave trade reinvigorated slavery, justified by 19th century pseudo-scientific racist ideas. Okay. Yeah, they're inferior to us, so you know, it's just like the doctrine of discovery. We were on the land, but yeah, they're on the land, but they're savages. They're not humans, so you know we could take their land. They just make shit up and do whatever they want to do. Do whatever they want to do. Okay? But we gonna see. In the mid-19th century, science and the scientific community served to legitimize society's racist views. Okay? Scientists argued that Africans and their descendants were inferior, either a degenerate type of being or a complete separate type of being altogether, suitable for perpetual service. Okay? So they this is propaganda that they start pushing. Okay? Speaking these words and saying, oh, well, they're not real people. Okay? Like the European scholars before them. American intellectuals organized humans by categories like seeking differences between racial populations. The work of Dr. Samuel Morton is infamous for his measurement of skulls across the populations. He concluded that African people had smaller skulls and were therefore not as intelligent as others. Okay? Morton's work was built on scientists such as Josiah Nott and Louis Agassiz. Both Nott and Agassiz concluded that Africans were a separate species. Not Africans, Israelites. And we are a separate people. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6. Chapter 14, verse I believe is 1 or 2. Okay? We were created better than the rest of these nations. But the devil say we were created that we are less, we are subhuman. This information spread into popular thought and culture and served to dehumanize African descended people further while fueling anti-black sentiment. Where's anti-black? Where's the stand up and the hoorah? Okay? Companies. Okay? Why y'all not why is nobody protesting, the makers of the guns that kill our people? Okay? Why ain't nobody protesting against the institutions that further keep our people in bondage, man? Where's the outcry about that? Because it's not. This is a whole system of racism, man, that they want to perpetuate. All right? Look at this. They would say this is us. But if anybody look like that, it's them. Okay? Anybody look like that, it's them. Okay? Damn monkey people. No lips having ass. Okay? How the hell they kiss? The fuck? Can you imagine kissing a damn Edomite? With no lips? What the fuck? The fuck is this? By the 1850s, anti-slavery sentiment grew intense, in part spurred by white Southerners' aggressive attempts to protect slavery, maintain national political dominance, and to spread the peculiar institution, slavery, to newly acquired American lands. Pro-slavery spokespeople defended their position by debasing the value of humanity in the people they held as property. Okay? Debasing the value of humanity in the people they held as property, Israelites. They supported much of this crusade through the racist scientific findings of people like Samuel Morton, which was used to argue the inferiority of peoples of African descent. As the tension between America's notions of freedom and equality collided with the reality of millions of enslaved people, new layers to the meaning of race were created as the federal government sought to outline precisely what rights black people in the nation could have. Which was none. All right? We all know that. Dred Scott versus Stanford. Say it was in this philosophical atmosphere that the Supreme Court heard one of the of the landmark cases of U.S. history, the Dred Scott versus Sanford. Dred Scott and his wife claimed freedom on the basis that they had resided in a free state and were therefore now free persons. The Supreme Court ruled that Scott could not bring a suit in federal court because black people were not citizens in the eye of the U.S. Constitution. Chief Justice Roger B. Taney also ruled that slaves were property based on the Constitution. The Constitution of this place. Okay? What they hold to their heart. Okay? It says, and their owners could not be deprived of their property. Okay? Ultimately, Taney declared with the full force of law that to be black in America was to be an inferior being with no rights, which the white man was bound to respect. Okay? And that slavery was for his benefit. Taney used the racist logic of black inferiority that saturated American culture of the time to argue that African descents were of another unfit race and therefore improved by the conditions of slavery. Improve. Okay? Yeah, we're doing them a favor by putting them in slavery. It's improving their life. Because without us, they'll be lower than they are. Okay? The court's racist decision and affirmation that that African descents were merely property would severely harm the cause of the black equality and contribute to anti-black sentiment for generations to come. Okay? It's written in their books, their constitution. Okay, what a constitution? I'm trying to think of the word. Your foreword or your what's the word? Your like the things you intend to do. Your intent. Okay. Slavery is in their intent. They intend to do this to keep this country going. Okay? That's Dred Scott and them. More on Dred Scott. The nations fiercely defended slavery under the guise of property rights because the forced labor of black people was extremely profitable to the entire country. Okay, so who built this country? Okay? America's further developed its concept of race in the form of racist theories and beliefs created to protect the slavery-built economy. These beliefs also resulted in the establishment of widespread anti-black sentiments, which would influence the American consciousness long after slavery ended. Okay, it's still going on today. These thoughts, these things that they set up hundreds of years ago, okay, it's in perpetuity. It's ongoing. The only time it's going to stop is when YAHAWASHI comes back and destroy this place, man. Okay? And we going to beat, okay, through the spirit of YAHAWASHI, we going to change their minds, okay, about how they see us. All right? Stop and think. In 1847, Frederick Douglass responded to prominent abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison's I have no love for America as such. I have no patriotism. I have no country. What country have I? The institutions of this country do not know me, do not recognize me as a man. What do you think he meant? How did the institutions of this country see him? What do you mean? What do you mean? It just says you're not a man. You're nothing. You're property. You're like a pair of shoes or wheelbarrow. Okay? Or a mule. Okay? Or a shovel. Property. There is no Negro problem. The problem is whether the American people have loyalty enough, honor enough, patriotism enough to live up to their own constitution. Well, they do live up to it, because they wasn't talking, when they was talking about freedom, they wasn't talking about the slave. It's written in the Constitution that, you know, you were 3/5 of a person. You wasn't a whole person. Okay? Frederick Douglass. Segregation and Jim Crow. Reconstructing race in the Nadir. When the Civil War ended slavery, the entire nation shifted its economic reliance to free labor. Still, the damage of anti-blackness and the heresy, somebody got to tell me how to pronounce that word, of race continued to shape how people related to one another, and how the government would regard and legislate to various races. The U.S. came to depend on the exploitation of cheap labor, especially that of those considered non-white people, but also that of poor whites, including women and children. White society, particularly in the South, were reluctant to shift their views of Black Americans and sought ways to continue exploiting the labor of African descendant Israelites, descended people, while simultaneously remaining privileged. The debt bond labor system called sharecropping and hierarchical social order of segregation called Jim Crow will lay the foundation for a deepening racial divide. Okay. This thing is real, man. The scriptures are real. Okay. That perpetual hatred. Okay. I got this one other clip, Lord willing, I'd get to do that video tomorrow. You know, where this Edomite woman, you know, she was on a talk show, and she was just saying, you know, how she hated Negroes. Okay. And the lady asked her, what, you hate they black skin? No. She's like, no, it's not the black skin, because a lot of people have black skin, but it's their features. I hate their features. I hate them. Negroes. Okay? So that's that perpetual hatred that was set up by YAHAWASHI, man. Okay? Keeping the concept of race alive. After the Civil War and Reconstruction, many localities and states enacted laws and social norms that would reestablish the social order. Where whiteness was supreme, the U.S. legally affirmed the practices of segregation through the Plessy versus Ferguson Supreme Court case. By law, Americans could lawfully separate people in society and discriminate against Black Americans based on race. Okay, you hear that? The Plessy versus Ferguson decision of separate but equal legitimized the idea of white supremacy in America, as well as the de facto segregation already occurring in the nation outside the South. Okay. It says it resulted in the creation of a multitude of new races, laws, and practices whose ramifications are still impacting the country today. American society drew upon centuries of racist ideas to justify this new form of exclusion and exploitation, especially that of scientific racism and social Darwinism. Newly elaborated racist concept reinforced the social belief in supposedly inherited differences between black and white people, helping keep alive the concept of race and racial differences for all of people in America. Okay? They want to keep it perpetually, man. Okay? Trying to say that we are some low class, degenerate, non-thinking, you know. But one thing about it, we were never in no caves. We ain't never drink out of our grandmama's skull. We ain't never sit around and play, play with our, we ain't bury our dead and play with the skeletons. Okay? We ain't used to crawl around on our all fours. We didn't used to not be able to speak and go, talking about that's how man was a cave person first. Evolution. No, just you. Okay? EDOM. ESAU. Okay? It says African Americans and the Chicago World's Fair. Backed by the scientific racism of the mid-19th century, a branch of pseudoscience called eugenics contributed to further legitimizing social belief in the biological superiority of those people considered white and the subjugation of other groups in descending order as skin tones darkened. Okay? Eugenics argue that people could be divided up into various races of people according to their genetic descent and were predisposed to be either superior or inferior by nature and in culture. And it's like I'm thinking about this as I'm reading it. It's as the 19th century drew to a close, one of the most elaborate displays of this new scientific belief was anthropology. Was the anthropology exhibition at Chicago's World's Columbian Exposition of 1893. In this very public forum, people were displayed in various arrangements of progress and reinforcing to the general and visiting public the racial heresy of the time. Okay. Remember they used to have the zoos. Okay. They had our people in zoos. In cages. For people to come see. Okay. Racial integrity laws. Similar to early decades, the category of white expanded or contracted during the early 20th century to include various groups of people such as the Italians and the Eastern Europeans immigrants that were coming to America. Other groups such as the Chinese, indigenous people, and black people would remain outside the world of whiteness. Okay? As a result, they would struggle to gain the same privileges afforded to whites, such as voting, education, citizenship, and a share in the nation's wealth. That's still going on to today. Okay, we can't go into the bank and get a loan. Okay, I was just listening to Magic Johnson, talking about him going to the banks, to 9 banks for years, and they were turning him down to get the capital to open up 150 Starbucks. Okay. The redlining, we can't live over here. Okay. You can only be this. You can only be that. Being taught to our children in the school by the Edomites. Oh, don't set your height. No, don't think you could be that. You'll be a good trash man. Okay? You'll be a good carpenter. Don't try to be no scientist. What are you doing? Don't try to be no doctor or no lawyer. That's too high for you. Okay? It says acceptance into American culture was closely linked with this assimilation of whiteness, thereby creating an unconscious connection between who is American, and whiteness. Okay? Creating an unconscious connection between who is American and whiteness. So the Americans are the so-called whites. Stop and think. How did the 19th and 20th century scientific racism create and reinforce notions of racial heresy? Okay? They put it in line. They set it up like that. Okay? So that was the historical foundations of race in America, man. All right? That was it. It went a little long, but, sometimes it's got to go long. All right? But, these devils, man, they know their time is up. That's why they're on the fence right now. Okay? They don't want you to say nothing about them and who they say they are. All right? Because who they are and who we are two different people, man. This how we were. This how we used to look as a people back in the day. Okay, look how the women were dressed. The women, all the women, even the babies had on dresses. Okay. I'm sure they had their head, like they had their head covered. Okay. And this is the adversary, man. Okay? Calling us inferior. When he okay? He is the inferior one, man. Had to create race in order to escape who he really is. Okay? And his final judgment. Okay? Jacob and Esau, man, that's the story. That's what's really going on. Okay? And with all this controversy going on, it's the Lord waking up his people. The elect are being woken up by it. Going to investigate it. That Hebrew to Negro movie is skyrocketing now in sales. People are beginning to wake up. At one point, I didn't know, that Esau and Jacob were brothers, that the white man and the black man were brothers. I didn't know that. Okay? And now, the people, the others of our people, okay, the elect that didn't know it, now they know. Okay? Because all that things they trying to do is backfiring. And actually, what it said, you can't do nothing against the truth, but for the truth, man. Okay? So, Evil E, you mad, son. Why you mad, son? Why you mad? All right, ain't nothing you can do but that what you doing right there. Okay? And all of that is going to be tears in them eyes soon. Okay, so this is what's about to happen, man, to America. Okay, because the slavery of the Israelites is over. Okay? Served our punishment, now it's time to get on to the kingdom. So, I want to end it right there, giving all praises to YAHAWASHI, YAHAWASHI, RAWCHAA QADASH. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and salutations to the RAWCHAA. We have to speak the kingdom of heaven into existence on the daily, man. Yeah, we almost out of this piece, man. All right, the chariots are definitely in view. Lord willing, it was an edifying lesson. Until the next time, I want to say shalom.